Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very special edition of the Humblecast, in which we will honor and, in some way or form, also mourn the passing of President Satoru Iwata of Nintendo of Japan, who, as many of you might already know, passed away last Saturday on the 11th due to a bile obstruction. It's a very difficult disease to detect early on, and usually when it's too late, they detect it. And he has been having some problems lately, and unfortunately, he passed, and he will be sorely missed. This evening, I'm joined by my friend Bruno, SNES Mapper. Bruno, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Well, I'm just fine, and sitting down here, quite in disbelief. Actually, you were actually the first to let me know about the news. I was working, and I was really taken aback by the news that Iwata had passed away, and I didn't register at first until I went on the internet and read that he had in fact passed away, which is quite a shame.
Right.
And Joseph is not with us tonight, but he'll be with us in spirit, as will Iwata-san. So first of all, I would like to extend our most sincere condolences to Iwata-san's family, which I imagine are going through a very difficult moment. It was very sudden, and our most sincere condolences to them.
Yeah, likewise, I would like to extend my condolences to his family and close friends. And yeah, I'm sure they're going through a very tough time. Iwata was, pretty young, only 55, and I'm sure it was a pretty shocking event for his close people.
Yeah, it's far too soon to go.
Absolutely.
Indeed. Well, a little bit about Iwata. He's 3 years younger than my mother, actually. He was born in Sapporo, which is in Hokkaido, the very north of Japan, which happens to be my favorite part of Japan, for many reasons, but the main reason is ikameshi, which is my favorite Japanese dish, which is squid filled with sweet rice. And yes, well, I love Japan, as many of you may know. And he was one of the first and one of the most important people working at HAL Laboratory Incorporated. HAL Laboratory is one of the most distinguished developers in the world, and they have produced thousands of, maybe not thousands, but at least hundreds of hit titles. And perhaps the most famous of them are the Kirby titles, which Satoru Iwata is actually the father of Kirby. He was created in '91 with his very first game, Kirby's Dream Land. Actually, that was on the Game Boy, if I'm not mistaken, yes?
Yes, original Game Boy.
Yes, indeed. I still
And
remember those commercials.
it was a white Kirby, right? Not a pink one.
Indeed, it was white. Yes, he turned pink in the second one.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that. It was a white one, and then it turned pink for some reason. I'm not really sure why.
Well, he worked on one of my favorite series, which is also published by HAL Laboratory, The Adventures of Lolo, known as Eggerland or Egarando in Japan. It's a very nice, very puzzling series of environmental puzzle games featuring a little blue blob known as Lolo, who actually makes an appearance in the Kirby games as Lololo, and he's always pushing a green block. And if you haven't played The Adventures of Lolo, you definitely should download them onto your virtual console. If for no other reason, to honor the memory of a man who really knew what he was doing, and he could see beyond the surface of what most people consider to be the game industry. He could see where things were going, and aim his company and aim his tactics towards succeeding, even in a market which would do everything possible to prevent him to succeed. That is very admirable of Iwata-san.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, you can tell from his early, career he always had an interest in programming, and at a very early age I was reading that he was already making his own games, like using a calculator and things like that. So he was by all means a pretty bright mind from the early stages. And the games that he worked early on, I think, are a testament of his creativity. Like you mentioned, Adventures of Lolo and Kirby, and also a favorite of mine, Balloon Fight, which is a
Oh yes.
pretty simple game, pretty easy to pick up and play, but very hard to master. That's another favorite of mine.
Da 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 da. Da
Da,
da
da,
da
da,
da
da,
da
da,
da 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 da
da.
da. I love Balloon Fight. That is one of my favorite games.
Did you
Also,
did you did you play
yes.
that back in the day when it came out, or were you a late adopter of that game?
No, I rented Balloon Fight several times, and my brother and I played Balloon Fight. It was my favorite rental game. That and NES Open Tournament Golf, which is a golf game, which is incidentally also Iwata was the main programmer. I
Right.
remember the logo had Mario, Luigi, and two princesses dressed in caddy suits, which they looked like Princess Toadstool, but I guess they were just clone characters. But yes, I really liked his games, and his work I think is very important and integral to the history, not only of the company but to the industry as a whole. He had a very interesting philosophy behind game development.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting to see how he took his ideas. Obviously, he was backed up by a team, but you can see under his command, and then I think Nintendo came up with some of the most, I guess, innovative and different, if you want to call it, consoles. And I think that was part of his success and legacy, if you will.
Indeed. Not to mention, perhaps one of the things Iwata is most famous for is the compression technique, which many people call it alien technology. I call it genius. He was able to compress onto a Game Boy cartridge Pokemon Gold and Silver. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with how famous those games were back in the day.
Oh yeah, I remember for Pokemon Gold, I pestered the German guy at Gamelandia.
Gamelandia. Oh, that bastard.
Yeah, I remember I got gold, and my all of my friends got silver, but I got gold. I was kind of forced to get it, but I do remember on launch day, a quote unquote launch day, because we'd never had an unofficial date back then. But we went to Gamelandia, and I got gold, and my friends got silver. And yeah, I mean, it was surprising at the time because the game offered the previous region that was available in red and blue. And Iwata was actually the genius behind that compression technique that allowed both regions to be playable in the game. So that's really impressive. I mean, at the time it was a complete success, and something that it was unheard of to put so much information on a tiny cartridge like that.
I forget, on foot or on a bicycle, I think it took like 45 minutes to get, or 35 minutes or something to get from one side of the map to the other.
Right. I don't remember
I read
exactly.
that in a magazine somewhere, and that's on the Game Boy. That's on the 8-bit Game Boy Color. That's
Yeah.
an impressive feat.
Absolutely.
Wow. So, Satoru Iwata, thank you very much for all our childhood memories, and you will live on in your awesome works and in the legacy that you leave to your company. Like Yamauchi before you, you may not be with us physically anymore, but in spirit, your legacy will always remain.
Now, let me ask you this question, and let's put feelings aside. And I know we're all, have a huge respect for Iwata, but are you a Hiroshi Yamauchi fan or Iwata fan as far as their legacy and work that they left at, Nintendo?
I respect both of them equally for different reasons. Now, number one, Yamauchi is, um, first of all, he's a hibakusha, which is Japanese for the bomb-affected people, the people who were affected by the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings. And he had a very different philosophy. He had a very conservative Japanese philosophy, and even to the point that he was hostile towards Americans, which is perfectly understandable. I lived in Japan, and I have met people who detest the Americans because of what they did to them or their parents or grandparents during the Second World War. So Yamauchi, he described Japanese businessmen as tigers in business suits, and he described American businessmen as Yogi Bear with picnic baskets. So he was, I would say, he was a little bit anti-American, a little bit racially biased, which is not strange for Japan, and considering the time period he grew up in. But as a businessman, Yamauchi was a genius, and he knew what he was doing. He took a small, relatively small company that made playing cards and turned it into a juggernaut, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the largest and most famous company in the games industry, which will still survive even after other companies have come and gone. And we can make a whole list of that, but we don't need that because, well, we all know the classic examples.
Mhm.
But Iwata, I think of Iwata as when you start up Fire Emblem on the Game Boy Advance, you choose your tactician, right?
Mhm.
You know the first name that I chose for my tactician?
What is it?
Satoru.
Satoru.
Yes. And the reason is, I believe that Iwata is more of a tactician. He is a gentleman, of course. He was a gentleman, and he uses diplomacy and cunning where others use brashness and I hate to use the word, but I'll use it, hype, and sort of like getting people pumped up for this and that. Now, Iwata also he could build hype for people, but he did it in such an elegant and such a, for lack of a better term, such a Japanese way that even though we were all hyped and pumped for everything that he said, he always maintained his calm, and he knew how to tug at our heartstrings with things like Super Smash Brothers or with all his works really. He knew where to put those little things in his games that made us remember better times in which we were small in our living room, enjoying our rental games or the few games we got on our birthday. And he understood, which is why one of the one of the images that you sent me that I liked very much on his business card, he's the president
Mhm.
of Nintendo. In his mind, he is a game developer, but in his heart, he is a gamer. And I think that that philosophy is what kept him in very good touch with the actual medium that he's working with. Because if you think about it, a lot of the other people in other companies, naming no names, who are in his position do not have that insight. Satoru began from a very early age programming little games on pocket calculators and graphing calculators, going on to the Commodore VIC-20, which is a home computer, eventually working at HAL Laboratory. So he was in every step in every stage of development. He literally worked himself from the bottom, from a workhorse to Lord of the Land. So I
Mhm.
think that perspective is what makes him very special as a president.
What traits do you think? Because basically, Hiroshi Yamauchi handpicked Iwata. So, what traits do you think he saw in a young person like Iwata? Because at the time, it was kind of a, I guess, I don't know if I should use the word controversial, but a lot of people were surprised by Yamauchi's decision of basically handpicking Iwata to run the company. What do you think he saw on Iwata?
I think he saw a face that could carry the company forward, that would not fold before, first of all, derision or other companies making fun of him. Now, Iwata was a very elegant and very self-contained person, even in his puppet form, which I actually love that skit, by the way. He always maintained his cool. He was very intelligent. He's kind of like the quiet tactician, very intelligent, and you won't guess that he's hiding a katana under his kimono, but he has that katana sharp and ready to stab you.
Hmm.
Um, and I think overall, what sets apart Satoru Iwata from other people, from other presidents, is that besides his understanding, he could put himself in the place of his consumer base, and at the same time surprise them. As in, let's see, you have the latest Smash Brothers.
Correct.
How many things in the latest Smash Brothers did you not expect to get when you bought that disc?
Oh man, it's like there's so many new things. Like it's unbelievable. All the new game modes. The 8-player battles. I mean, they somehow manage a way to surprise you every single time.
I think that's Iwata's greatest quality. That you know what to expect, but you don't know what to expect. You know you're getting something, and you know you're going to get something good, but you have no idea what it's going to be. And I think he put a little bit of that in every one of his games he's either made, produced, or supervised.
Yeah, and that's the
So I
thing.
think that's
The games that he obviously he was an executive producer for the latest Smash Brothers, but I was actually reading a couple of days ago a couple of I guess quotes by Masahiro Sakurai, the head of Sora.
sort of.
He's responsible basically for the Smash Brothers games, and man, it was really heartwarming to read how much of an influence Iwata was for him ever since the first development of the Smash Brothers series. And it's really amazing the amount of I guess love and respect that I've been reading from people that actually work with Iwata. And I know he just passed away, and people usually come out and say nice things about you, but I mean, you can feel that these people did have a true respect for him, and he was a very influential person in their work style, and as far as supervising them and all that. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. I've always had a lot of respect for Iwata, and now this might sound strange to somebody living in 2015, but anyway, I have all his speeches, all the E3 speeches from 2001 onward, recorded on Betamax at my house.
Yeah, that's actually awesome. I guess I can always YouTube him, but
Yeah,
now that you mentioned that, I mean, I think he was an incredibly I don't know how to say it, but good speaker. I mean, overall
eloquent.
eloquent. Yes, he was.
Yes.
Ever since
He
his first
always had.
appearance, I think his first appearance was at GDC. I think back in
Yes, in 2000, I believe.
okay, yeah, and I don't know. Every time that he took the stage, or whether it was a live presentation on E3 or the previous shows, or whether it was a pre-recorded Nintendo Direct, he is one of the few, if not the only, like CEO president that he was also like a kind of like the face, almost like a mascot for Nintendo, if you want to call it that, because
Yes, indeed.
he identified so well with his audience, like you said, and that was part of his charm. And I have so many fond memories, especially the Nintendo Directs, how he was goofy in delivering the information. He made you laugh, but at the same time, he let you know what the product was going to be all about. And I think Nintendo Directs are incredible. Like every time there's one, obviously I always looked forward to them, because they give you not only like a trailer for new upcoming games, but also a very like insight as far as from my developer point of view, and even more in depth. I don't know if you're a fan. I'm sure you read them before, the Iwata asks sections.
Yes, I
That
have.
those are amazing, and I think Nintendo should like publish a book with those, because those are one of the most entertaining reads that you will ever find if you're a gaming aficionado, because Iwata really goes deep, and he asks developers the questions that matter, and it's the kind of stuff that you don't read in regular magazines or on the internet. Those are very fun to read, and not that Iwata passed away, I think I'm gonna start reading those again, because they were just very interesting to see them from a like a developer point of view. A lot of
Indeed.
tons of tidbits that were very interesting.
Not to mention, Iwata actually coined many terms that are now used, such as evergreen titles and disruptive innovation, and other terms that other people have used that he originally coined. I remember in 2001 when they were unveiling the GameCube, that Iwata said that the plateau for better graphics is they're slowly reaching it, and it's not going to sell a product in a few more years. And he was totally right. And the evidence of that, if you look at the Wii, which everybody, when it was going to launch, and I have some magazines, everybody was confused and scoffing at it because it was not as technologically impressive as the competition. Although, arguably, I would say that it has more technology in it now that I'm looking at it. Um, you can do a lot more with it than you could with this competition in terms of how many gadgets are in it. Now, granted, they may not be the newest technology, but they did put a lot of technology in that little white box. But I digress.
Yeah, the
But
Wii was like Nintendo's nuclear weapon. Basically, it
it was
disrupted.
Nintendo's little boy.
Yeah, it disrupted the entire business scheme of both Sony and Microsoft, to the point that they had to come up with their own Move and Connect or whatever. I think that I mean, in my opinion, obviously, might be one of the most, if not the most, like influential console of its time, just because it forced the competition to completely rethink their business model, and come out with products that were similar to what the Wii was offering.
I put it on par with the NES that there is a before and after this product.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Indeed. Well, I think we've pretty much covered the importance that Iwata had, his notable works, and the importance of him in the industry and his influence, which I think is great and will remain even after his passing. Um, and some of my personal memories of him as a president, I remember watching his conferences and listening to what he has to say. He always had very interesting things to say, regardless of how many memes, like, please understand, there might be.
Please
But he
understand.
always had very interesting things to say. And now that he has passed, and somebody is going to succeed him naturally in the following months, what do you think the company's direction will be from this point on?
I don't really think it's gonna change a whole lot. I think they're gonna follow his footprint, in the sense that Nintendo will continue to try and innovate and look for, I guess, creative ways to entertain people. I think through Iwata speeches, through his different conferences, Nintendo Directs or whatever, he always looked for something different. He always looked for something to stand out, and he always looked to involve audiences of all ages to enjoy their products, and I think Nintendo will follow the same footsteps. I'm sure they already had a plan in place as far as the successor of the Wii U, because Nintendo basically, as they said, when they when they released the GameCube, they were already working on the Wii, for example.
Hmm.
So I'm sure they're deep in their research and development of whatever the next console or handheld might be. So I think they're gonna follow his vision, if you will, which is again something that is, in my opinion, very valued and very unique. Because in a way, I think Iwata um, brought back what Nintendo was always. And I know you mentioned, I forgot if you mentioned this on the first episode of the Humblecast, or I think it was on the second. I think it was on the first one. How Nintendo, they were a toy company back in the day, and I
Yes.
think what separated them was their innovation and creativity. There's a really good book called Before Mario that it focuses on the Nintendo products that were, the types of toys that they released, before they became a video game juggernaut. And
Hmm.
as an example, for example, they had a product called the Nintendo Light telephone, which it used. I forgot the exact description, but it used some like kind of like wave transmission. It was basically like a walkie-talkie that it was used as a flashlight. It was like a
Hmm.
very innovative product, and then you have things, other types of toys, and I think Nintendo or Iwata in this regard kind of took that philosophy of being one step ahead of the competition in terms of innovation. And I think the Nintendo DS, the Nintendo Wii, the 3DS, and the Wii U are a testament to that, because they're considerably different to what the competition offers. Um,
Indeed.
and in some ways, in my eyes at least, the Nintendo DS, the Wii, and the 3DS were major successes from a sales point of view. The Wii U obviously is struggling, unfortunately, but I think Iwata did most good than bad, much more good than bad in that regard. It's just
Mm.
I think the market nowadays don't understand what the Wii U is, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about Iwata. His I guess throwback to the roots of Nintendo. Being innovative, being offering something that all types of audiences can enjoy. And like I said, the DS, the Wii, the 3DS are the perfect example.
Indeed. Well, we'll see what this holiday season has to bring because they have a barrage of games that they're going to release very soon between this year and next, and I don't know. This could be a very good holiday season for them. It's looking as far as E3 was as their Nintendo Direct. What was it? The digital event was it? It's looking very promising. I'm
Yeah,
very looking forward to it.
yeah. I mean, we have Super Mario Maker, we have Star Fox, we have Yoshi's Woolly World, which was, I believe, already released in everywhere else but in North America.
Yes.
So then we have the localization of Fatal Frame. So I think, and then well, again for here for North America, we're gonna have Xenoblade Chronicles X. So me personally, I'm more than happy, I guess, with what they're coming up, and in a way, the perfect way to, I guess, celebrate Iwata, passing away and his legacy will be to Super Mario Maker, which we can bring our creativity and mimic his vision, and we can create our own levels. I think that'll be really interesting and cool.
Yes, indeed. Very much. Make a level based on Eggerland or make a level based on the words please understand, things like
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
Yes, indeed. Well, Satoru Iwata, we will miss you, and we will honor your memory as well. And you will always remain like Gunpei Yokoi and Hiroshi Yamauchi, a key person and a pillar of this company, which left a very big and very lasting legacy. Gunpei Yokoi with his innovation using materials that were easily decades old, and Hiroshi Yamauchi with his tiger-like business strategy, which turned his company from a relatively humble playing card company to a juggernaut, which is one of the largest companies in the world, which remains profitable to this day, which I think is no small feat by any means. And in terms of game design, I think Iwata's game design philosophy and his legacy will live on for many, many years.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. I think he was a very influential figure to the medium, and his legacy will definitely live on through generations to come. And the outpouring messages from people involved in the industries, saying thank you and expressing their condolences. I think it's a testament of how important of a figure he was in the gaming industry.
Very much so. And to honor Mr. Iwata, later tonight I'm going to play Adventures of Logo.
There you go. I think I'll play. Have you played the Nintendo Land version of Balloon Fight?
Not yet, no. Unfortunately, not yet.
It's really fun. It's basically the same thing with prettier graphics and fancier graphics. And I do have Balloon. I'm gonna play the classic Balloon Fight. Who am I kidding? I have it on the 3DS as part of the Ambassador program, and then also on my Wii U Virtual Console. I don't own a original NES anymore, but I do have those in my Virtual Console service. So I guess I'll play Balloon Fight, and for the umpteenth time, I'm gonna try and figure out the physics of that game because it's so hard to master.
Yes. Well, I guess we can close this Humblecast by saying farewell, Iwata. Thank you very much for everything. And humming the tune of Balloon Fight as a closer. Are you ready?
Ready.
Da 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 We need music lesson. And when you die.